You're listening to a bonus episode of LeaderCast. This one's short. Welcome to LeaderCast, Transforming Missions podcast with Tim Bias and Sarah Thomas, providing you with insights and resources you need to lead a movement of Jesus followers.
As we ended episode 100, we were focusing on new beginnings and the courage to celebrate new beginnings. But it seems like an oversight not to also look back. So since we asked you to look back in our questions, here's our question for you. What episode was most helpful to you? What topics helped you follow Jesus and lead others to follow Jesus every day? Let me do this again. Listen closely. What topics helped you follow Jesus and lead others to follow Jesus every day? What episodes were most helpful to you? Sarah, what have been some of the highlights for you?
Okay, so give me clarity here. Highlights from the episodes, highlights from recording the episodes, highlights from editing the episodes, publishing the episodes, or sharing the episodes on social media.
Well, you've been busy this past year, haven't you? I was thinking more along the lines of which topics, episodes that stood out to you.
Oh, gosh. So we've done 100. Over 100. And this is going to sound like I'm trying to avoid the question, but for me, there's something different about each episode that strikes me. And so most recently, the episode that we did around the courage of Elizabeth, just a few episodes back, was one that challenged me and confronted my views about who Elizabeth was and the message that she offers to us and what she teaches us. That was one. The whole series that we did on rumbling with vulnerability was important. Although now that I've spent time with Brene Brown, I don't think I would have put boxing gloves on the graphic. And why I'm saying that, it may sound silly to those of you listening, but what struck me is it really sends a conflicting message to the real idea behind rumbling with vulnerability. This isn't about the boxing gloves. It's not even about, it is about getting in the ring and being vulnerable, but it's not about getting beat up in any way, shape, or form. So that's why I say I don't think I'd put boxing gloves on the graphic. There was an episode where you asked me, Tim, to talk about the time that I was backcountry hiking and camping in the Rocky Mountains. I think we called that one "She Did What?" and this is going to sound selfish, but it was a good reminder for me on my faith journey, and I hope for others of what the beginnings of our faith journey and how faith begins to be formed in us and where that can happen in our daily life. And no, you don't have to go on a backcountry camping trip in the Rocky Mountains for that to happen. So that was another one. The interview that we did with Erin and her roommates about tacos and vulnerability, that was great. But what I didn't like about it is, Tim, you weren't a part of that one. The Galatians series was one that was meaningful. Okay, this is turning into a review of all of our podcasts, so I'm going to stop. What about you, Tim? What are your top 5 episodes?
Sarah, I can't name my top 5. I can do some series. I think one of them that I think we might even want to bring back sometime is the one we did on a hope with hospitality, offering Christ, our practice, and engaging in the community. Those were some of our first ones.
They were our first ones.
But I think to rework those a little bit might even be more meaningful for now. Another series that I liked was when we did the 7 missional questions. and trying to encourage our listeners to get outside the walls of the church and into the community, and the kind of questions they needed to ask themselves and the people in the community. I really enjoyed those. Some of them that you've already mentioned, I've learned a lot, even though I'm one of the persons on the podcast. I've learned a lot through what you have taught me about Brene Brown and the skills of courage. When we did Rumbling with Vulnerability and living into your values, braving trust, and learning to rise. I'm going to mention two more because they're very important to me. And one of those is the one we did just recently on the courage of Mary. And when I heard you read the words of your niece, Paxton, that was pretty important. And I appreciate you sharing that. That's just one I can't get out of my mind right now. And of course, Elizabeth, I'm not putting this on one of my favorites, but I'm saying that when we did Elizabeth, I learned a whole lot about disgrace from your study about Elizabeth.
I'm glad you didn't say you learned a whole lot about disgrace from me.
from your study. But others, I mean, I didn't even think about it till you mentioned it, but I did ask you to talk about your mountaintop experience, and it was entitled, She Did What? So I think my favorite one at any time is the one we're working on. So as we do that, what are we looking forward to in 2020?
So we did this on episode 100, and we asked you a series of 9 questions, inviting you to think about your year ahead and be intentional in that planning. And we teased you a little bit with some of the things that we were working on. And one thing that we didn't mention that we'll introduce to you here now and is going to be coming in the next few episodes is exploring what season you're in of following Jesus and the courage that's required to do so. So right now, this is a bonus episode. So over the next 4 episodes, we're going to talk about the 4 seasons we find ourselves in as Jesus followers. And the reason that we're calling them seasons is because we return to them just like the seasons return. And sometimes you feel like you're living in winter and things are darker and they're dormant and you're waiting. And in that season, you simply need to remember who you are and how God has gifted you. At other times, you feel like it's spring, and that's a season full of possibilities, and you need to make a decision about where to focus. And then there's summer, and it's a season of growth. And then in fall is a season of change, and what goes with change other than leadership. So on this short little bonus episode, the question that we want to leave you with is, what season do you find yourself in right now? It's winter, literally, outside when we're recording this episode. But the question that we're asking is, what season are you living in as a follower of Jesus? Our hope is that the next 4 episodes will help you unpack where you're living as a Jesus follower.
Well, we're already in the new year, so I'm looking forward to living into what we've planned and inviting our listeners to journey with us as we become more who God created us to be and they become more who God created them to be. So thank you.
So as we always do, go lead a movement of Jesus followers. Bye for now.